In 2012, Telltale Games was on top of the world. The Walking Dead was a cultural phenomenon, revitalizing the adventure game genre and winning more than 80 Game of the Year awards. They were receiving offers from some of the biggest IPs in the world, begging Telltale to make a game for them. But just 6 years later, they were bankrupt. Behind the scenes was one of the most grueling crunches in gaming history, and all of the issues pointing to one man and his insatiable ego. In 2011, Telltale Games was still a small indie studio. They were founded in 2004 after Troy Molander, Dan Connors, and Kevin Bruner left LucasArts to pursue their own projects. Known for point-and-click adventure games like Tales from Monkey Island and Sam & Max, the team at Telltale earned a reputation when they started turning existing IPs into games. Wallace and Gromit, Jurassic Park, Back to the Future, and Law & Order. Yeah, a Law & Order video game exists. It was through these film and TV adaptations that Telltale received the opportunity of a lifetime, a chance to work on a game based on The Walking Dead. At the time, The Walking Dead was one of the biggest shows on television. Part drama, part survival horror, it had all the elements needed to make a solid adventure game. But Telltale didn't want to just emulate what they'd done with previous titles, they wanted to do something special. When development started in 2011, a big trend in AAA games was consequential decision-making, putting players in a position where the choices they make would have serious consequences down the road. Games like Mass Effect and Heavy Rain really let players shape the narrative. Choosing this option would lead to this person not trusting you. Saving one person would lead another to dying. Stuff like that. Telltale decided to go full bore into this kind of storytelling, and boy, did it work. As a game, The Walking Dead Season 1 was incredibly simple, essentially a graphic novel with QuickTime elements. But the storytelling was gripping. The choices felt real. And overnight, the game took the world by storm. The first season released episodically, keeping the hype going for months, as people followed Lee and Clementine until the conclusion of Season 1 in November 2012. The game was easy enough to pick up that non-gamers could play it, and the consequential decision-making made each playthrough feel unique. With everything going for it, The Walking Dead Season 1 was not only one of the best-selling games of the year, it also won more than 80 Game of the Year awards. In 2012, the idea that a point-and-click adventure game could win Game of the Year was kind of shocking, but to its credit, the game was really, really good. But while everyone and their grandma was singing the game's praises, there was one person who wasn't exactly satisfied with its success. Telltale CEO, Kevin Bruner. Bruner was the one who designed the Telltale tool, the game engine used to make all of Telltale's games. While The Walking Dead was receiving awards left, right, and center, Bruner wasn't getting nearly as much credit for his work behind the scenes as he thought he deserved. Instead, it was the writers and directors, Sean Vanneman and Jake Rodkin in particular, who were getting the spotlight. This irked Bruner, who felt that his contribution was just as important as theirs, and he took things kind of personally. Moving forward, Bruner more or less forbade creative leads from talking to the press about Telltale Games. Bruner wanted to be the only one allowed to take interviews, be on panels at conventions, and have quotes featured in magazines. He wanted to be seen as the creative force, and he was also afraid that if people like Vanneman and Rodkin got too much of the spotlight, they'd leave the company and start projects of their own. This led to a very tense environment at Telltale, with many describing Bruner as the Eye of Sauron, watching their every move. These internal issues were exacerbated when Bruner made the decision to rapidly expand production in 2013. At the time, Telltale was just finishing up their next game, The Wolf Among Us, and were trying to figure out what to make next. With the success of The Walking Dead, Telltale had the capital and the reputation to license some of the biggest IPs in Hollywood: Batman, Guardians of the Galaxy, Game of Thrones. Over the course of a few short years, the studio exploded to over 300 employees, and Telltale signed on to create several different games for licensed IPs, promising to do for them what Telltale already did for The Walking Dead. On paper, the increase in manpower meant Telltale should have been able to put out games faster and more efficiently. But in practice, hiring 200 new employees meant the office quickly turned into a faceless mass of cubicles and middle management. Whereas the team that made The Walking Dead and The Wolf Among Us were a tight-knit crew who had been working together for a long time, their releases from 2014 onward were made by a larger, younger, and less experienced group. The size of the studio got too large too fast. To make matters worse, Bruner started to become increasingly overbearing and inflexible, micromanaging every part of the development process and wanting everything to be tailored to his own personal taste. For the creatives at the company, this was exceedingly difficult because they'd have some amazing idea that they wanted to share or some new way of telling a story, and they'd almost always get shot down by Bruner. It must have been a nightmare working for this guy, having the Grinch as your boss. Thankfully, this Christmas season, we've got a game that will thaw even the chilliest of hearts. And the best part? It's free. Watcher of Realms is a strategy RPG you need to start playing. They've got samurai, dragons, Sun Wukong, Dracula, and even the Joker. With Christmas right around the corner, Watcher of Realms is celebrating with their Giftmas season. All you have to do is log in every day and take part in festive in-game events. You'll earn up to 123 free summoning crystals, a huge variety of top-tier rewards including legendary soulstones, Yuletide Christmas skins, special gifts, and more, and the best part is they're all completely free. And redeem the gift code Get 10 Free Draws immediately to claim 10 free pulls. The most exciting part of this event is there are 3 new heroes being introduced. There's Rivenhold, a support lord who specializes in team buffs, Khadgrim, a defensive tank who excels at damage reduction and protecting their teammates, and Adrian, an AoE-focused warrior who can convert shields into bonus damage. Whether you're a new player or an old veteran, progressing in Watcher of Realms has never been easier. You can auto-fight, quick star up, and use gear enhancement tools to catch up to longtime players in no time. Available on both PC and mobile, and featuring 200 heroes across 10 factions, now is the perfect time to start. Watcher of Realms features immersive PvE modes, as well as huge guild versus guild battles. Whatever you choose to play, there's nothing quite like deploying your heroes and watching them kick butt out on the battlefield in real time. So what are you waiting for? 'Tis the season. Click the link in the description below and scan the QR code to download Watcher of Realms for free now on PC, Android, and iOS. And don't forget to redeem the gift code Get 10 Free Draws right away to test your luck. Okay, back to the video. It didn't take long for people to say enough was enough. Sean Vanneman, Jake Rodkin, and The Wolf Among Us writer Adam Hines felt that Bruner was stifling their creativity. In 2013, Vanneman and Rodkin both left to start a new studio, Campo Santo, putting out the critically acclaimed Firewatch 3 years later. In 2014, Hines went to co-found a new studio called Night School, who put out one of my personal favorite games of all time, OXENFREE. Both of these games had similar elements to Telltale Games in that they were narrative-driven with a heavy emphasis on decision-making, but they were also innovative in ways that Telltale Games were not. And in the coming years, it would become clear that Telltale was being left behind as the game industry was moving forward. One of the big sticking points was the game's engine, the Telltale tool. Kevin Bruner was the one who designed the engine way back in 2005. Since then, 2 generations of game consoles had come and gone, and the engine was becoming increasingly limiting and inefficient. Employees begged him to switch over to something more modern, like Unity or Unreal Engine, but were continually met with the same stonewall replies. It would take months to switch over, during which time they wouldn't be able to work. The Telltale tool is what gives Telltale Games their identity. Most of these just sounded like excuses because Bruner wanted his tool to be the one the games were made on, and everyone just had to resign themselves to using the archaic engine. It didn't help that Telltale were also in charge of multiple billion-dollar IPs. The pressure to deliver for Game of Thrones what they did for The Walking Dead meant that Bruner was strongly against taking any risks whatsoever. He wanted to keep rehashing the same thing over and over with a fresh coat of paint, trying to emulate The Walking Dead in a new context. This approach was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it meant brands got exactly what they were asking for, but it also meant that all of their games started to feel the same. The first time you're faced with a decision that will permanently kill a character, it's shocking. The 10th time, it's predictable. Pretty quickly, Telltale started seeing a decline in sales. With a studio of 300 employees and multiple game licenses to pay for, Bruner couldn't afford to let things slip away. He had to turn things around quickly. So, his solution was to work his employees to the bone. He wanted more games, faster turnaround, higher output. Telltale went from working on 1 or 2 games simultaneously to working on 3 or more. To get everything done, Bruner began crunching his employees relentlessly. 5-day work weeks stretched to 6 or 7. 8-hour days increased to 12 or more. The work culture at Telltale Games became one of the most toxic in the industry, and there was a constant churn of veterans leaving the company only to be replaced by junior developers and writers fresh out of school. These new employees didn't have the same experience as those they were replacing, but they were naive enough to accept the 80-hour work week as normal. Unfortunately, the increased output resulted in Telltale oversaturating their own market. They were putting out so many games for so many different IPs, there was no way for sales to keep up. The games were still fairly good, but people can only play so many games at a time. An increased release schedule can't fix that. To top things off, other adventure games like Life is Strange were taking the genre in exciting new directions, while Telltale was stuck rehashing the same formula over and over. The result was a team of increasingly inexperienced creatives being worked to the bone, forced to put out suboptimal games before they were finished. The pot came to a boil in 2017, when the tension between Bruner, the employees, upper management, and Telltale's board of directors bubbled over. Bruner was politely asked to step down from his position and left the company later that year. In the aftermath of his departure came a sort of bliss. One source says, quote, "I didn't realize how much we had learned to hold ourselves back from thinking big. We'd really been trained to think small, and realizing that was a freeing experience." But the honeymoon wouldn't last long. In September of 2017, Pete Hawley, former SVP and GM of games at Zynga, was named the new CEO, and he immediately laid off 25% of the company. To be fair, those working at the company didn't really hold it against him. Many believed the layoffs were inevitable, the result of years of mismanagement, and a logical correction after the company aggressively scaled up back in 2013. Despite the layoffs, things seemed like they might actually be looking up for Telltale. Hawley decided to switch off the Telltale tool and began moving development over to the Unity engine. Telltale announced a few new projects, and many hoped they could recapture the same lightning in a bottle they did with their earlier releases. However, on September 21st, 2018, everyone got blindsided. Telltale was shutting down. Most of the employees didn't know what hit them. They received an email about a meeting in the morning, and at that meeting, they were told to pack up all their belongings and vacate the building immediately. Apparently, Minecraft Story Mode Season 2 and Batman Enemy Within didn't sell well enough to justify keeping the lights on, and those in charge decided to shut it all down. Telltale would keep on a skeleton crew of 25 employees to finish any active projects like The Walking Dead final season, while everyone else was being let go. In the aftermath, people began taking legal actions. Fernie Roberts filed a class action lawsuit after the company closed with less than a day's notice, no severance, and without filing for bankruptcy, all of which were in violation of California's WARN Act. Kevin Bruner sued the company for financial damages after being forced out by the board of directors. It was a hot mess of finger pointing, but at the end of the day, it was the end of an era. Despite doom and gloom surrounding the Telltale Games specifically, there is still a hunger for the kinds of games Telltale was known for. Several ex-Telltale employees, including Nick Herman, Denis Lenart, and Pierre Choret, recently put out a new game called Dispatch, which took the internet by storm. It has a similar framework to those old Telltale games, but it also has tons of new features that make it feel fresh in 2025. Peaking at more than 130,000 concurrent players on Steam in its first week is proof that narrative-driven adventure games still have a place in modern gaming. You just have to be willing to innovate, and also work with the cast of Critical Role. The story of Telltale Games is a cautionary one, remembering that great games are not the result of one person, but many. If those writers who made The Walking Dead and The Wolf Among Us had been given the room to be creative, to try new things and experiment, who knows if Telltale could have survived a little longer. Unfortunately, ego got in the way, and yet another great studio fell to the wayside.